Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. And today we have a very cool knife to talk about. This is the North Arm Knives Skaha. Now this is the Gen 1. This is the one, in fact, it's very similar configuration to the one that Nick Shabazz reviewed, I don't know, about a year ago, maybe not quite a year ago, and was very impressed with it and caused this knife to be very, very popular. So popular, in fact, that when they brought out the Gen 2, their website crashed more than once. It crashed and then they thought they had it fixed and they opened it up for sale again and it crashed again. And so now they've totally revamped their system. And what you do now is if you want one of these, you go to their website, you go on a waiting list, and they'll tell you when they're sort of ready to start building your knife. I think it makes good sense that people like this as much as they do. And I can certainly understand the appeal for Nick, especially. This knife is kind of right in his wheelhouse. So a couple quick things about this that do make it stand out. First up, of course, is this blade. So we have a CNC milled blade, and you can see the milling in it, which does add a really, really cool feature to the blade. One thing that's interesting is it doesn't limit the usefulness at all. So you get a blade that looks absolutely amazing, that's going to be different than most other knives that are out there and really sort of adds a detail that most people are going to be interested in. Or maybe not most, but many. And so from that perspective, I think, I can totally get the appeal to this knife based on the blade. The other big feature of this knife is, of course, the action. And it cannot be understated. The action here, or it cannot be overstated is what I should have said. The action on this knife is absolutely dialed in. It is so, so well done. And the guys at North Arm Knives, Canadian guys out of British Columbia, do deserve a lot of credit for having this so well done. Okay, so this is the Gen 1. I could see why it's popular. It makes total sense that this would be a very appealing knife. A couple things that people commented on. One was the blade. The other one, and this is primarily a Nick obsession, if you will. It has a large flipper tab, which he absolutely hates. And so on the Gen 2, they have changed the clip, and I think this clip is an improvement. They've also changed the flipper tab to make it a little more smaller, and they have improved the angle. And I'm a little more impressed with the angle change than I am with the size. I really, a large flipper tab doesn't really bother me. But I do appreciate the fact that this one is a little more comfortable. So now that we've kind of talked about the Gen 1 a little bit and noticed the two major changes, let's go ahead and talk about this knife and try to determine whether or not this knife lives up to the hype. I know it's highly sought after. I know everyone is trying to get one right now. Is it worth it? Is this something that you should be chasing? Should you be signing up for the pre-order? Or maybe this is one that looks really cool, but it's better off, to skip it. So let's go ahead and start off with size and weight. And the size on this guy is 7 3/4 overall. 3 3/8 on the blade, not 7 3/8. That would make an interesting knife, wouldn't it? 4 3/8 on the handle. And the weight here is a very, very comfortable 3 ounces. So very, very well done. Now, the one number I should share with you, because it's a little strange given the size of this knife, is the fact that this guy is about 5/8 of an inch thick. So there is quite a significant sort of palm swell there. Now, it does add a lot of comfort to the knife. And I know we're not quite to the ergonomics part of the discussion yet, but that is worth noting that that fairly thick handle is designed to be extremely comfortable in hand, and it is, okay? So fair enough, but it may affect how it carries in pocket. And how does it carry? Well, a knife of this size, it's only 4 3/8 inches when it's closed. It only weighs 3 ounces. It's really unobtrusive, guys. You really don't even know you've got a knife with you. So I think that they've done a pretty good job on making a very lightweight, easy to carry, everyday carry knife. Now, the blade, let's go ahead and talk about the blade. This is sort of the order we always work in. We start with the blade and work our way down. And this blade is absolutely beautiful. And as I said a second ago, this is the one thing that truly attracts me to this knife more than everything else. Okay, the action is great. It shouldn't be denied that the action is phenomenal. But I've got lots of knives with good actions, and there are tons of knives out there with good action. Not usually at this price point, which is anyway, I'm having the lockup and deployment conversation while we're looking at the blade. So let's get back to the blade. This blade is extremely, extremely nice for a couple of reasons. One, it's highly functional. This nice flat grind with fairly thick stock, thin behind the edge, means that this is a very, very useful cutting tool, okay? And that's the main thing we look for with a blade. It's S35VN, which means it's gonna have great performance in terms of edge retention and corrosion resistance. And then the main thing that is different about this is, of course, the beautiful milling that's left in this blade. And that really makes this stand out. And I would suggest to you that honestly, most people buying this knife are buying it because of that. That blade is truly unique. I guess not truly unique, but certainly very unique in this price category, which is around 200 bucks, okay? So that I think is the big factor here. And you know, I love it. I really do. I find it very, very attractive. I find it very, very interesting. In fact, this is one of the knives that I've gotten questions about from sort of non-knife people. They see it and they're like, wow, that is cool. Is that like some kind of special steel, or what's the story with that blade? And it's just the fact that when they did the milling with their CNC, they left the milling lines there and it looks really, really attractive. So blade here is a total win. And that, of course, to me is the standout feature of the knife. Now, let's move on to lockup and deployment. And again, the action is good, guys. I'm not denying that for a second, but there are a couple things I don't love here. First of all, the flipper tab is better on the Gen 2, but it's still not extremely comfortable. The detent, of course, is dialed in. The smoothness is off the charts, and that's something that North Arm Knives deserves a lot of credit for. It truly is the action of a $1,000 knife in a $200 knife, okay? And that's impressive. Not that they're the only one. I will remind you of the Real Steel Megalodon, which, again, in fact, that action may even feel a little more refined than this one. The action on that is superb, all right? But so is this. Absolutely amazing. And for the price point, you got to give a lot of credit to that. Now, in terms of actuating this, there are a couple little issues that I have. First of all, I find this lock bar a little difficult to access. I sort of have to use the tip of my thumb and kind of squeeze it in there. If I would have had just a little more room here, I would have appreciated it more. All right, the other thing that I sometimes do is I end up pinching my finger between the lock bar and the little cutout here in the G10. So I end up kind of with a bit of finger fat kind of, hold on, focus, kind of in that space. Then when I go to unlock the knife, I'm stuck. One last complaint, and that is the placement of the flipper tab. I wish it were just a little higher or something so that I had just a teeny bit more room. From time to time, I don't give myself, so I'll show you, there it's unlocked. There's the detent ball. So I'm hitting the detent ball right now, and it doesn't do it every time, but I do find myself once in a while having to go back and sort of remove that lock bar in order to get the knife to close. All right, now in terms of smoothness, in terms of, you know, the flippability of this guy, I don't know if flippability is a word, but we're gonna use it today. It's phenomenal. All right, my only minor complaint is unlocking there. I wish it were done just a little bit different. And maybe it's just my big, awkward, thick thumbs or something, I don't know. But I find it just a little awkward. Moving on now to the handle construction. And I think the handle construction here is once again a huge win. For a knife like this, that's not meant to be some kind of heavy duty, tactical, outdoors use folder, I think going with the full G10 construction is a great move. And I really, really like it when knife companies do that because it does cut the weight down substantially. And I really appreciate the fact that I've got a great knife here. It's really strong. Not for a second am I concerned about any movement here or any weakness. Okay, it feels great in hand. Nice and open construction so that it's super easy to clean out. All right, so all kinds of great things here. The other thing I really like is the way that they've done the lock bar as sort of an insert here. So you can see that lock bar comes down, and I'm hoping, yeah, see right at the tip of my finger there, you can see the bottom of this screw that's screwed in here through the pocket clip. So the pocket clip screw is holding in that lock bar. There you go, you can see it again there. And I just think that's a really efficient use of material and design. And so I've got to say, I really like the way that they've constructed this. Let's lastly talk about ergonomics, and the ergonomics are phenomenal. The jimping is just right. It's not too sharp. It's not too smooth. It's just really what you want. The handle is nice and rounded and fairly big, which makes it hand-filling and extremely comfortable. And so in terms of ergonomics, I really have no complaints whatsoever. You could possibly complain if you pushed really hard on this bottom of the tab can get a little uncomfortable on your index finger, but I don't find myself doing that, right? When I'm pushing on this, I'm pushing down in this direction. I'm rarely going to be doing any kind of stabbing motion. And so I can't really take points away for that little bit of roughness on the bottom of the flipper tab there. So in terms of handle construction and ergonomics, yeah, this is really, really well done. I guess maybe I haven't pointed out the lanyard hole here. Oh, by the way, clip is single position. I love the clip. It works really well, and I think the wire clip is a better way of doing it, especially for this knife. Finally, there is a lanyard hole. It's not a huge one, and I mean, it's just kind of there. I don't hate it. I don't love it. There's not really too much special about it. It just happens to be there if you really want a lanyard. Okay, so that's construction and ergonomics. Let's get to some comparisons here. And I've got to say this, okay? Yes, we're going to look at some comparisons. They're going to be similar size, similar price point, that kind of thing. I've got a couple of knives here that have really nice actions that I kind of brought to compare. But the reality is, one thing that's cool about this knife is it's kind of in a class all its own. None of the knives I'm going to show you are going to have that cool blade detail. None of them are going to have the action quite as dialed in as this guy does. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is a Para 2 S35VN G10 construction, very similar, a little heavier, a little more comfortable, or a little more real estate in the handle. I mean, both are pretty comfortable. I like the Para 2 just a little bit more. But again, it's not going to be quite as smooth as this, and certainly you're not going to get that cool blade grind. There you can see a good size comparison as well. I've got a couple other things that are sort of in this size range. Here's another, again, very well-made knife. This is the Steel Will Mini Gecko. I think on my last video, when I posted this video, someone mentioned there's a G10. There's an M390 version available, which would be a worthwhile upgrade to this knife. But again, very well made, very refined. You're not going to get the action, anything like the action that you get on this knife, or the really cool milling lines there. What else have we got here? Let's actually one more sort of similar size, similar roll knife. The American Lawman, I think, is one of the most perfect EDC knives in existence. It's slim, it's light, it's really strong. This knife is a little more confidence inspiring to me. Okay. I don't know why the lock bar didn't pop all the way in there. Oh, there's all kinds of dirt and crap in it. Okay, well, anyway, this knife is very similar size, a little heavier, similar blade length and all of that. Of course, much, much cheaper. What else have we got here? I've got a couple other things. This knife I brought primarily because of the action, and the same is true of this knife. So the ZT is going to be in a similar price point. The Riat is quite a bit more. This is a knife that has similar action, and this makes a really good point, guys. The action on this is nearly perfect, as well as the action on this. But you're paying substantially more for the Riat, and that's one place that I've got to say this Skaha really, really shines. Here's a knife that costs about the same amount, and the action here is good, and it's enjoyable, and I absolutely like it, but it's not in the same league as the action on the Skaha, which is amazing. Okay, so wanted to kind of give you that comparison as well. One last knife that I'll throw in here. This is the Kaiser Quarto. You get a longer blade here, you get higher end materials. The action is not the same, but if you're looking for a medium EDC knife that's in good quality materials and really, really easy to carry, I think the Quarto is a pretty good comparison. And I think you're going to be able to pick this up cheaper than this, which is kind of surprising given the fact that this is a titanium frame lock. Lastly, let's go ahead and throw in the beast, the Cold Steel 4MAX, the knife to which all other knives ought to be compared. Okay, so what do I think of this knife overall? First, I can understand why people love this knife as much as they do. It's got some really cool stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else. I really like the construction on this. I like the variation in colors that you can pick. I love the blade grind, although I think for some of us who are more mature than I am, the blade grind is pure novelty, right? You don't need a blade like this. It just looks really, really cool, okay? And very, very appealing as far as I'm concerned. All right, and finally, there is that action. And if you want to experience the action that you're going to get on like $1,000 knife, but you don't have $1,000, I think it's almost worth buying just for that. All right. And so I've got to give it a lot of credit. What we have here is a very capable EDC folding knife, extremely well made at a very attractive price point. Of course, being made in Canada is a real bonus. And you got that very, very cool blade and that nearly perfect action. In fact, you may as well call it a perfect action. And for all of that to come in at around $200, I think this is a real win. I definitely recommend it for those who are into that kind of thing. All right, there will be some of you watching this who, the blade doesn't really matter to you, that action, as long as it's reliable, is all you care about. And for you, yeah, this is probably a knife to skip. But if you want the things that I described, then definitely pick this one up, and I don't think you'll regret it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.